Jesus freak here. I'm actually surprised that my video about the fiery serpents didn't go down like a lead brick, because it's actually what I was expecting. You know, when I get speculative, my speculations are usually based on taking the text at face value. And I'm sure everyone agrees, you know, that's a good thing to do. Most, I won't say all, because obviously not all. Most of Scripture is meant to be taken at face value. And that's the approach I take. But given that so many people thought that you know, all this stuff in numbers had to be explained literally as, you know, natural stuff. Honestly, that's a skeptic's approach. You're working from the concept that worldly logic necessarily has to be involved with God. And we know otherwise. As I said in one of my replies, you can't use the natural to explain the supernatural. And this is a trap that a lot of people fall into. I've seen this especially among Methodist and Episcopal preachers. Now, you might go saying, well, this is a sort of anti-intellectual approach to take. Because it's self-taught. And you know that Methodist pastors have to go through years of seminary. That's kind of true. And Methodist pastors tend to be very well educated. The problem is you can't learn common sense in school. You can be very good, and someone pointed this out too, you can be very good at preaching on an intellectual level. But if that's not the level that your parishioners respond at, maybe you need to go simpler. See, I used to think I knew it all. The TTT, for example, is a product of a time when I thought I knew better than other translators. A maxim I use these days is the more I know I don't know. I looked at stuff I had done 8-10 years ago. wasn't as good as it is now, but I had more confidence. And in fact, one of my friends pointed out, the the better I'm getting at doing what I'm doing, the less confident I am about it. Of course, I got this incredible inferiority complex, but that's beside the point. Of course, to him, an inferiority complex is necessarily a negative thing. To me, it's the kind of approach I have toward myself is nothing different than, say, King David. He was willing to admit his failings. And oh boy, did he. And some people say, this whole thing is overblown. They say there's something wrong because I've internalized worm theology so heavily. The term worm theology comes from Psalm 22. In fact, it comes from Psalm 22:6, which reads, "But I am a worm and no man, a reproach of men and despised of the people." I don't see worm theology as necessarily a bad thing. But, to the point, the comment was made that people were too busy thinking about what kind of snakes the fiery serpents were, and neglecting the point that they were sent by God. As did they necessarily have to be literal snakes in the form of natural reptiles, as opposed to serpentine monsters? They were fiery serpents. And I said, wouldn't that mean they're seraphs in the form of snakes? So any of your conjectures about what species these might have been isn't going to hold because they weren't any species. But I had to take that approach. I think the saying, every sacred cow must be gored. People too hung up on trying to explain things so they make sense. It's God. It doesn't have to make sense. He's not bound by the laws of reality. He writes them, and he can unwrite them. But like I said, I'm surprised that I got the positive reaction I did. I actually expected a lot of backlash over that. Jesus, freaked out.